everybody. So welcome to episode, I believe it's 5 now of Clinical Scoop. We're talking right now, we've got Monica. I'm going to go around and let everyone introduce themselves. But I'm Dan. We're going to be talking about some coronavirus studies because that's obviously what's going on right now in the world. So I'm Dan Sfera. We're going to be talking about 4 of these studies. And let's just go around and everyone introduce yourself, please.
My name is Monica Cuitiva, and we're going to be talking about COVID-19 today, but today is more like a preventive kind of studies, and it's related more for the people that are in high risk, healthcare workers.
I'm Dr. Adi Zayerli. I'm an internal medicine hematologist oncologist. I'll be in the discussion for COVID-19 healthcare preventive studies. Dr. Ricarte.
I'm Dr. Juan Carlos Ricaurte, infectious disease specialist in private practice, and I joined the meeting today.
Welcome, everybody.
So we go through these studies, and we're going to get practical and talk from a perspective of a physician, from the science behind the study, the design, and then we're going to talk about the inclusion-exclusion criteria and what we think about the study as research sites. Because a lot of doctors don't realize that they can actually do research. They can do their own research if they wanted to. They can have their own site. And so we're going to show you how with these studies, even though some of these are going to be preventative, like this one for healthcare worker, this one could be like an outpatient study. Some of them are inpatient studies. They're a little bit more difficult to be the clinic, a research clinic, but we're still going to talk about how practical it is. So let's go through it. This first one on my screen, hydroxychloroquine as chemo prevention for COVID-19 for high-risk healthcare workers, sponsored by Hackensack Meridian Health. By the way, there's a lot of these studies right now. So I know many clinics that are doing this type of study, not this one in particular, but similar to this. This one's looking for 44 patients. And it's only going to be done at one location. So what is this one, Dr. Al? What's interesting about this one, you think?
Actually, I've been like phone tagging with Dr. Ricarte since the morning about this phase 2 trial for chemo preventive for hydroxychloroquine for healthcare worker. And Dr. Ricarte does not agree with me at all on the bringing up this study because why, Dr. Ricarte?
Well, what I was telling Dr. Yassarli before the meeting is that hydroxychloroquine is being studied extensively. And unfortunately, all the studies done in prophylaxis or treatment, they have been negative. Indeed, I think it was the ANH stopped the study that they were doing because they thought it was not going to be helpful at all. We're getting all the data from all over the world that all the studies did not show any benefit of using hydroxychloroquine. So I don't think it's being studied, particularly in healthcare workers. But maybe some of them were included in the studies that have been done for prophylaxis and treatment, and maybe post-exposure as well. And so I think it has gotten the enthusiasm of the ID community in doing research with hydroxychloroquine has decreased extensively. I stopped using it like 2 months ago. I don't use it anymore with my patients in the hospital. So that's, I don't think a lot of people will be enthusiastic about doing trials with hydroxychloroquine.
Dr. Al, what do you think?
I would not disagree with Dr. Ricardo in regard of the finding and everything about lack of the efficacy of hydroxychloroquine as a preventive for COVID-19. But nevertheless, we know that hydroxychloroquine have some antiviral effect, and most probably the design of this study can find this connection because it is in different setting of the other study, or the study that was published in New England Journal of Medicine, the one that Dr. Juan Ricarte was mentioning. And that one was mainly about, they started it after 4 days. But this one, starting it is directly after any exposure, or like, so it could be like at the end, it's still a clinical trial. It may show no benefit or no effective. It may be the design of this study will be showing different issue, but I agree with Dr. Ricarte 100%. So far, whatever we have information is not showing effect of hydroxychloroquine in COVID-19 for prevention.
Mm-hmm. And so we've got the, let's see, the primary outcome measures. That's not so interesting. The inclusion-exclusion criteria. So basically any age above 18, able to sign an informed consent, considered high-risk healthcare providers in a hospital setting with active exposure to COVID-19 infection. So I don't know how they're going to prove this. I mean, anybody in the hospital, I guess, would qualify.
Well, maybe this is like the healthcare worker that's working, nurses or doctors that's really in units that have COVID-19, like intensive care unit or COVID-19 unit. If there is any of the units is already assigned for, in some hospitals, they assign special units for COVID-19 patients.
Oh, yeah, they explain it here. High-risk healthcare providers are defined as those actively working during the study duration in the ER department and in the intensive care setting. Okay, so that makes more sense. It's actually not so easy to enroll these patients because they have to be basically employees of your hospital. So this makes sense why they're doing this study. This is probably the hospital. The sponsor is the hospital, or at least is part of the hospital group where these workers are. So they're not doing, this is not like a regular study where you're recruiting patients just from the public. These are going to be people you know that you're putting in the study. From my experiences, because this is only from one site. The 44 patients, only one location. So, I mean, they're not going to get patients from anywhere else other than from their own hospital. So, but there are many studies like this one, similar design, that are enrolling any healthcare workers, basically, that are at risk. So that would be an easy study to enroll for. I think we know, Dr. Al, you and I know somebody from the Site Owner Academy who's doing a similar study to this.
Yes,
you know, he was
done.
there. So anything.
Yeah,
But this is mainly preventive, no?
prophylaxis mainly to prevent. Yes, you're right, Monica.
Yeah, so is that other one. So there's a lot of studies like this one with healthcare workers, that's prophylactic. And so those ones would be easier, but if this one, obviously, if you're a research clinic and you want to join a study, this is not going to be the one you're going to get. They only have one location. Okay, and the sponsor is the same as the site. If you look here, sponsor, Hackensack Meridian Health, the site is the same thing. So they're just enrolling their own employees. So this one's good. Anything else you guys want to talk about this one?
Not my side. Dr. Ricarte, anything to add for this?
No.
Okay.
Thank you, Dan. Next.
The next one. Let's see here.
Which one is this?
This one, Max COVID-19 study. So this one, in view of increasing cases of COVID in India, and with the possibility of the exponential rise of the cases, this study has been designed to collect data of healthcare workers. See, there's another one, healthcare workers of Max Hospital and the general population. So this is similar to that one, except they're conducting their online questionnaires through email and WhatsApp. So this one, 10,000 participants from one hospital or locations. I don't know. This one.
I don't think it's from one hospital. They're going to take them forever to do it.
Yeah, they want 10,000 patients. I guess if we have more questions, we can email Sujit, and maybe they give us more info about this one. But this is just looks like questionnaires. It doesn't look like this is just observational. So maybe that's a wrong study. Let's look at this one. Chemo prophylaxis of SARS-CoV-2 in exposed healthcare workers. So here's another one. Okay, this one's for exposed healthcare workers. Oh, so what do you think about this one, Dr. L?
This is also using hydroxychloroquine compared to the other antiretroviral medication, which is Dr. Ricarte can let us know about it much better because this is his specialty in infectious disease.
Yeah, perfect.
Well, I think these studies were designed, probably the ideas came early in the pandemic when lopinavir, which is Calitra, was being considered, and also hydroxychloroquine. They are not being used anymore. Again, the data on Calitra, we don't have that much data with Calitra as we have with hydroxychloroquine, but the data is also negative. Indeed, it's been dropped from the protocols. So Calitra is not being, the lopinavir is not being used anymore, and hydroxychloroquine either. So I think this is the design of these studies were done early in the pandemic when we didn't have. We thought that they could work, but the data has been actually negative for both.
Interesting. Yeah. What are they showing as far as the studies that have been done?
No. There was a study also from Calitra, was reported in the New England Journal. It came out like 2 months ago that showed no efficacy, and that's why it was dropped. And so we never really got to use it here. Some people started using a little bit in the first couple of weeks of the pandemic, but then after that we just dropped it. I didn't get to use it because the study came out before I saw patients with COVID, and I didn't use it. I use hydroxychloroquine extensively, but then when all the studies show negative results, I stopped. So both are really pretty much dead for COVID.
Isn't this interesting, Dr. Ricarte, to have this study still recruiting even the data is negative?
Which one?
These study for hydroxychloroquine and for other antiretroviral, did that show any effect on these patients? To see them still recruiting patients? Because this is the start day of the start day of the study. This one was April 14, mid-April, like.
Right. Maybe they opened them, but then the idea was, I guess, sometimes you have to wait for approval. The committee meets, but we quickly stopped using Calitra, and nobody's using it anymore. A few people used it in the beginning, but not anymore.
Yeah, and interesting. Here,
Go ahead,
here it says active, not recruiting. So I don't know if they, stopped enrollment because of
I think they did on June 23rd. Oh no, that's the last update. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, but I think they stopped. They already stopped.
Yeah, they changed it here to active, not recruiting. But let's see here. Yeah. So maybe they changed they stopped enrollment actually because of the results are not promising. And that one's being done in France too. So then the final study, we have another one for healthcare workers. That's the theme for this.
Excuse me, Dan, before we go to the next one, you said that one is done in France. So if it's done in France, how come it's published under clinicaltrial.gov in the United States?
Oh, they'll publish it. So they'll publish them even if they're done in other countries.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, clinicaltrials.gov will have, it's pretty much worldwide, but it's a lot of, obviously in the United States it's mandatory, but if you're a foreign sponsor and you're using any site in the US, it's also mandatory. But in this case, they're not. They're using all sites in France. and they still posted it. They probably wanted to post it for maybe they get some incentive to post it because this looks like a hospital academic institute Pasteur.
Sure.
Yeah, so they probably get some incentives to posting on here.
Interesting. Thank you. That's all my question.
Yeah, they probably want like publicity, you know, about or to raise awareness around this. And this last one, so this one is being done. Let's see where it's being done first before we
I
get to
think that one is overseas, true.
No,
Oh,
this
come
one's
on.
right here.
Oh, no, it's here,
Uh,
United States.
The good old United States. So we have three sites. This one looks like a study that any research site who has access to this patient can do, because these are private clinics. Okay, you can tell. You can even call them if you want. They have the phone numbers here. And then the sponsor from romark.com. Okay, so this one, Dr. Al curated this one for us. So basically, it's
800.
800 participants, safety and efficacy of nitazoxanide, NTZ, for post-exposure prophylaxis of COVID-19 and other viral respiratory illnesses in healthcare workers. So we'll get to the inclusion, exclusion, but Dr. Ricarte, what do you think about this kind of study?
Well, we don't have much data on nitazoxanide, which is the Alinea. That's the name, the commercial. Let's call it Alinea. We don't have much data on Alinea and COVID. There's reports from other countries, I think like Middle East or about the use, but in the U.S. we don't have anything. It hasn't been studied. And I don't think it has been determined that it doesn't work, like with Calitra or hydroxychloroquine. So, but I mean, I think it's really worth doing a study because maybe the enthusiasm hasn't been significant and people have not studied the drug or studied recruiting to study the drug in COVID. But we don't have, as far as I know, as far as I remember, we don't have studies that show that it doesn't work. So it could be possible.
Yeah, and this study started around the same time as the previous studies that we saw, the chloroxychloroquine.
Yeah, that data came around in the beginning. Yes. I know some because I talk to people from. I have a friend from Colombia, from friends from other places, and some countries they use NTC as part of their protocol. But again, that's probably because they don't have access to the drugs that we use here, that we know they have positive effect against the virus. So they use ivermectin, they use NTC, they use some other stuff, but I don't think has been proven conclusively that it works or that it doesn't.
Yeah, this one I'm probably most interested in because as a research site owner, I mean, myself, Monica, Dr. Al, you know, this is one that, I mean, you, Dr. Al, your site can do this. You know, we were talking yesterday about this. So any healthcare workers at increased risk for occupational exposure, basically anyone that provides healthcare to patients and typically positions themselves within 6 feet of patients. So emergency department, ICU, COVID care unit, walk-in clinic, paramedic, or first responder. Okay, so this is basically any healthcare worker really that's in a high contact area, which, you know, this is how they defined it, but I'm sure they would allow walk-in clinics here that you can consider that like outpatient Clinic as well, no? Hello?
Yes.
Oh, so walk-in clinic, is that would be considered outpatient clinic?
Yes.
Yes,
Outpatient
that's
clinic
outpatient.
for. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So see, this is a study anybody can do. Like even Dr. Al, we were talking yesterday about studies like this. So here we go. We can contact, Matthew and tell him that, I mean, I'm sure they're going to have a hard time getting, let's see how many,
800 patients.
800 patients from 3 sites, so, I mean, that's a lot of patients per site. So in this case, the inclusion criteria is really simple, okay? This is probably the hardest part of the inclusion criteria, is occupational exposure to a person infected with COVID within 7 days prior to enrollment. So, I mean, I don't know how you can prove this. How do you
Working in
know
the
you?
unit.
Yeah,
Mainly
like
working in the unit.
Yes,
know,
but how can you
the
prove that to the sponsor?
no, I think just being in high risk atmosphere, such as intensive care unit or emergency room or like this is like a lot of time the nurses and the physician they go in contact with these patients, okay, on a daily basis, not within 7 days. On a daily basis, they see these kind of conditions. That's why when you go to the intensive care unit or to the high risk clinic or you see the healthcare worker already prepared for that, and they wear their N95 and they're set up for these kind of patients directly.
Mm-hmm. And then exclusion criteria. So subjects with indirect occupational exposure or not meeting the definition of healthcare worker. And then, they're going to start ruling out people with heart, lung, neurological diseases, a history of COVID-19, or if you have the antibody. So that's pretty simple, IE criteria here for a study. And I think this would be a relatively simple study to enroll patients. What do you think, Monica, about this study?
Yeah, I think it seems pretty easy. The only thing is, can you go up a little bit then? No, in the inclusion criteria. Yeah, no, I think it's an easy kind of a study to get patients for. I mean, for example, us that we work pretty much in front of a hospital. It will be, I mean, kind
Yeah,
of easy to get patients for this, and I think this one is also prophylactic, if I'm not wrong, right?
yeah.
Yes.
So this would be for,
Everything is prophylactic today for healthcare workers.
Yeah, 800 patients. I mean, they totally need much more sites, because just with 3 sites, they are not going to accomplish that number so easy, even if they are hospitals.
so one of you guys email Matthew and tell him you want to do this study. And that would be a good way to,
I'm actually going to do that, not just for us, but for everybody.
for anybody watching. I mean, this is the kind of opportunities. See, this is what we do this show. We bring on experts to talk about the science, and then we talk about the research and the practical aspects of being able to do this study if you had your own clinic, or even if you're in a hospital in this case. Like I know a lot of people, Dr. Al and Dr. Riccardi, that are hospital directors, and the hospital is asking them to bring studies like this to them. Like prophylactic studies for their staff. So they want these kind of studies. What do you think? What have been your experiences with these kind of studies from hospitals?
Well, I haven't participated personally. I have not.
Are any hospitals asking you for, like, are interested in these type of studies that you've heard?
No, I haven't heard.
Yeah, mainly in community hospitals, usually you don't find this kind of interest. mainly in maybe university, hospital, or tertiary care centers. They're looking for this kind of like here in the area, you know, USC or UCLA or UCI. They're looking for these kind of studies. Even surprisingly, I don't see any name for them in these kind of studies.
Yeah,
I think
none of these are hospitals. That's the thing about
no,
these sites. You know, these
only
are,
like sites.
yeah, these are private outpatient sites. So, you know, this is like perfect kind of study that we're looking for. This would be when we're looking for studies on clinicaltrials.gov for us that watch these shows and listen to this podcast. This is the kind of study that you would want. So, yeah, I mean,
I
any
think
closing thoughts on any of these studies or where we are headed right now with COVID treatment? Both Dr. Riccardi, Monica, Dr. Al, what are you guys thinking about this?
Dr. Riccardi, he's the expert in this thing. He can tell us about what he's doing these days about it.
So this is what NTC post-exposure prophylaxis, no? Within 7 days of an exposure.
Mm-hmm.
But the exposure is considered what, just being close to a patient,
Yeah,
even if you use all the PPE?
it's not clear. I mean, you know, yeah, I guess it's going to be self-reported by the healthcare workers. You know, were you exposed to anybody that may have had COVID? I mean, anybody in these units is going to say yes, and I guess you qualify in that case.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah.
If somebody offers you this study, like to do it in your clinic or in the area, that will you take it, Dr. Riccardi? Will you do this study?
If somebody what?
If somebody offered you this study to do it in your facility, wherever it is, hospital or clinic or Walkin Clinic that you go and visit, do you think it will be appropriate for you to do it?
Well, I mean, it depends on how much paperwork and how much involvement is necessary, how much time needs to be devoted for this.
Okay, so maybe the main obstacle for you is the time and preparing for the study. If you have somebody to prepare for you and get it ready and everything, it is feasible to be done in your facility.
Potentially, yeah, potentially.
Yeah, and mainly now when you are, what you doing for these kind of patient or patients who you think they get exposed to the COVID-19 or they have higher risk of infection with COVID-19? What do you think? How do you direct their care? How do you do for them?
No, for even to treat outpatient, no specific treatment, only like zinc, vitamin C, and that's about it. But because nothing has been proven to be efficacious against COVID, oral, something oral that can be used as outpatient. So again, I'm from Colombia, so I have a chat with all the Colombian doctors from my year and ID doctors, and they're using ivermectin because there's data that indicates that suppress the virus. But the problem is, for example, ivermectin is that the levels that in vitro it works, it has activity, like NTC has also shown activity, but the levels that they use in the lab to suppress the virus is hard to achieve when you take the dose that we use in humans. So that's why it hasn't been so popular here. Johns Hopkins started a study last month in June on ivermectin to see whether it has some activity or not. And also there are ideas to try to improve the drug, the presentation, to facilitate the penetration to the cell, so to achieve higher levels. But the current idea is that the presentation that we have now doesn't give us the levels in vivo that we need to suppress the virus. So it works for, it has activity in vitro against COVID, and also against Zika, against chikungunya, against even HIV has activity, but it doesn't, when studies have been done before in viruses, and when you use it in humans, it doesn't work for other viruses because of that issue. It doesn't suppress the virus. So that's what it is being used a lot in Colombia, for example, ivermectin for patients that are home. Even they're using it for prophylaxis, but they just do it on their own pretty much. But to treat some patients, they use it, but there's no data that it shows that it works. So John Hopkins, as I said, they started a study last month. Let's see what it shows. I don't know what the enrollment is doing, is they're enrolling people or not. But I'm sure they would find people, because it's the only thing really, because we don't have anything for oral treatment while the patient is at home. We don't have anything other than zinc and vitamin C, D, etc.
So Dr. Kati, high-risk patient who get exposed for COVID-19, they come to you, what's your advice for them?
The advice is stay home, and if you develop, get a pulse oximeter, and you develop symptoms, rush to the hospital.
And the symptoms you consider as temperature, cough, and high temperature?
Well, basically hypoxia. That's what decides, makes it whether the patient stays home, goes to the need for oxygen. The patient can be home, even if they have fever, but any symptoms at home are okay, except if they need oxygen. So then they need to come to the hospital because they can't get oxygen at home. And getting outpatient oxygen is not enough, because you don't know, as you know, COVID causes hypercoagulability, and it causes blood clots. So we don't know if the shortness of breath, the hypoxia, is coming from the viral pneumonia or from clots in the lungs. And then they will need to go, we have to check the dimer, give an oxygen anticoagulation, we can do that at home. So if the patient has shortness of breath, hypoxia, to the hospital. That's the decision to hospitalize. Or obviously they have a stroke, an infarct, then obviously, yeah.
No, we're not gonna get there.
No, it happens. It happens.
Yep.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Ricardo, for coming on, and Dr. Al Jazairli, aka Dr. Al, for being a co-host, and Monica for doing all the work to put this together. And you know, this is the kind of study that last one. This is us that are in this business, this industry, private clinics. That's the kind of study. There's plenty of those out there. These are just 4 that Dr. Al curated. There's hundreds of thousands on clinicaltrials.gov. Total studies, not coronavirus. Coronavirus studies, there's probably like 1,000 right now that I checked on clinicaltrials.gov that are recruiting. So there's a lot of opportunities out there, guys, for anybody watching, listening. As you can see, some of the studies not that difficult to do as far as inclusion-exclusion criteria. And then the science, you know, that's for the doctors to decide if that's something they're comfortable doing, just like Dr. Riccardi, if he were to do that study, or Dr. Al, you know, that's up to them. But, you know, it's definitely an interesting field to be a part of, and it's definitely, as far as the work is concerned, you know, with our PI Academy, it's relatively simple to be trained on how to handle the paperwork or hire the staff to do the paperwork for you. They're called clinical research coordinators, and Monica is expert at training these people.
Yeah. Hello, Chris.
Monica. Oh, Chris, you joined right when we're leaving. Great job. Literally wrapping up. Do you want to add anything to this?
All I know is this was a conversation about COVID. That's about all I gathered.
It was interesting. You're going to watch the replay.
Absolutely.
But thank you very much, Chris, for joining, and Dr. Riccardi, and Dr. Al, and Monica, and everybody for watching and listening. And we'll catch you all later.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.